What's up? Great balls of fire. See. Okay, I'm just go ahead and start talking. Anybody that's in here, I'm gonna let you guys kind of lead the conversation. If you've been following any of my videos on YouTube, you're probably aware of the fact that we have Nidovirus in our collection. What's up, Nicole or Nico? Big boys, Nico. What's going on, man? Da, 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 da. If you guys have any questions, we're just going to kind of do a back and forth, whatever you guys can think of to talk about. I could obviously talk about any number of things. I could come up with, I could talk your head off all night. Nothing much you. It's Sunday. My 1 day weekend is over. Oh, back to the grind tomorrow morning. I have a stream going on YouTube, and I also have a stream going on Instagram. So I'm going to kind of bounce back and forth. Big D's, what's going on, man? Martin's Morphs, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. So lately, the videos I've been putting out, I'm getting a ton of questions, good questions about Nidovirus and, how to handle it and where it comes from and all that. Fun, just cleaned all my reptile cages. Nice. I did that 2 days ago. That's my Friday nights. What's good, bud? Hanging out. My first time doing live stream. Forgive me if I do anything terrible. Hopefully I can manage this and keep up with both streams. How's it going? Pretty good. As good as it can. We got the news last week, or we got the results back from the test we sent out. Test 69 animals. If y'all haven't been following on YouTube, we test 69 animals. 3 came back positive for Nidovirus, and it wasn't the 3 we expected. Glad another Georgia boy in the house. Sony. Yeah, you're up there by Sony. Man, that is that the name of the town? I feel like that's near Chatsworth or Chop. What's the? Where do I deliver up near Dalton, Georgia? Sony, you're near Dalton. Funny. Watching your new bid. North of Atlanta, Sony. Okay. Yeah, I think I've delivered to Sony before. Let's see. Hey, Jennifer. Hello, Teresa. How are you? So the purpose of this live stream for everyone that's checked in now is I'm being kind of overwhelmed with questions about the Nidovirus that we're dealing with and just every different angle that you can talk about that. I could literally probably talk for 10 hours straight about what I'm going through and what I've learned in just a few months. And it's difficult in text chats back and forth to not end up writing a whole book, and then it takes forever to go back and forth in conversation. But it's a lot easier if we can just have this face to face. If anyone's curious about anything, feel free to ask, and we'll just kind of go from there. And I imagine once the conversation gets started, that's going to spark more questions. You guys can keep on going. But back to what I was saying earlier, we have 3 animals that tested positive. That leaves 66 that tested negative. According to what I've been told, the likelihood of a false negative is fairly high, about 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 or 1 in 6, give or take. So there could be more, clearly. We've already lost 5 animals. So hopefully we're done losing animals. That would be ideal. Um, but that would be 3 positives plus potentially 5, and that's 8. So that's about uh, what is that? Like 10% of my collection, roughly 10 to 15% of my collection. So how does the virus happen? The virus happens. It spreads from one snake to another. It's not something that can spontaneously uh, come up in a snake. It has to come from one snake to another. So the only way to get the virus in your collection, if you had a perfectly healthy collection, the only way to get it in your collection would be to buy an unhealthy snake. The problem with the virus is that it can be asymptomatic, which means that you won't even know that the animal's sick, even if you quarantined it. And I mean, technically, they can live for years and never show signs of being sick. And that that means you technically could have it in your collection now and not know it. Obviously, that's scary. I'm not saying that with the intention of scaring people or freaking people out. What's up, Atypical? You guys are very, web or live stream oriented, and I don't know anything about this. So if I do anything terrible, feel free to message me after, Atypical, and give me some pointers, because this is my very first time. Let's see how it goes. Hey Phil, what are y'all names? I never caught your names. Atypical. The husband and wife. Very cool couple. Let's see. So it spreads from, back to the question. It spreads from snake to snake. You could technically have it. That doesn't mean you need to panic. We just need to be aware of it and increase some of our biosecurity, some of our handling practices to avoid. Tom and Casey, what's up? To avoid spreading it from animal to animal. Because even if you do have it and you're not aware of it, if you're careful, when it does show its head and it does pop up as being a problem, you can easily avoid it having devastating effects by doing the right thing before that. Being careful, taking your time, handling cleaning and stuff like that, and feeding, so that you can avoid it being, if it does show up, it won't ruin your collection. Of just Tom at the moment. What's up, Tom? So, Tom, you're the one that I talked to you about those shirts. Very cool. Very nice shirts. I love those shirts. The scripted text on the back, really nice. My wife loves hers. Thank you, guys. Let's see. Interstellar in the house. What's up, Interstellar? Well, sorry, I'm shaking the camera a little bit here. How does it spread? That's it. So for the new people that are here, again, we're just answering questions about Nidovirus. A lot easier to do this in open discussion. Jennifer says, you had mentioned doing research with temperature cycling to try and help create more accurate test results. Does that mean you will be swabbing every single day of that temperature cycling? The intention is to test as often as is practical. So we may have to test every day in order to detect the change that we're trying to find. I'm hoping we can test what I'm thinking is initially we'll test probably every 3 days for the first run. And then if we don't get an exact accurate answer, then maybe we'll try 2 days and do it again and try 1 day if we have to get that fine tuned, because the idea is typically these symptoms show up whenever an animal is put under stress. So let's say your heater goes out in your house and a week later you got a couple snakes that pop up with RRI. Technically, that could be Nidovirus showing its head because the immune system was jeopardized in the animal by stress or just by the cold temperatures. The the introducing the colder temperatures to the animal could artificially create that, and we could do it in a controlled environment that we could see how many degrees do we need to drop it for how long, in order for us to detect a spike in the presence of the virus. The lab that I'm working with has the ability to detect and test the viral load of that animal, not like some specific quantitative number, but they can compare one sample to the next sample to the next sample to the next sample. And by doing that, we can create some sort of a curve and detect the viral load changing. And if that works, and it works uniformly across multiple animals, then we could potentially see that if you take any animal and drop its temperature by, let's say, 5 degrees for 5 days, and on the fifth day, the viral load is at its highest in a known positive snake, then that tells me that I can tell you that if you bought a new snake and you put it in quarantine and you got it settled and comfortable, and then let's say a week or two after you get it, you drop the temperature by 5 degrees for 5 days, and then that's the day that you take your nidovirus test. Not the first day you get it necessarily, but maybe it's 2 weeks later that you take that test, and then you know that if it does have Nido, because you temperature cycle, that you're very, very likely to catch that virus when it's most prevalent. Because otherwise, if we don't have any control over the virus load and that shedding cycle, then we might be taking a sample. If, let's say, the shedding cycle is not constant, let's say it's a spike and then it's a long, 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 just not visible, not present, you can't detect it. And then it only spikes whenever the animal's put under stress potentially. Well, if that's the case, if the animal comes in and it's happy and chilling in your quarantine, you'll never test it and get virus back or get positive results back. So by introducing the stressor, we could potentially find that we could find it almost instantaneously rather than leaving that up to chance. From a breeding standpoint, if you breed an animal or animals who unknowingly have Nido, what is to come of the clutch, assuming they are viable and hatch? If a clutch is artificially incubated, they have found that the eggs, the outside of the egg, has detectable virus on it. So the bodily fluid of the female can transmit to the outside of the egg. But once you take those eggs away from the female and you artificially incubate them for 60 days, it's assumed that the virus on the outside of the egg is no longer viable and no longer contagious at that point once the eggs hatch, and there's no known vertical transmission. So inside that egg, there's no virus, so that it can't pass from a positive parent to a offspring. So the offspring are all coming out negative, and they're remaining negative indefinitely. They've had several experiments done with that and had a lot of success proving out. They have had 0 cases where the offspring turned out positive. Now, one common practice that I have personally done, and I've seen other people do, is you're making a video or sharing or have friends over and you want to show them what you produced. You take out the parents and you show off the parents, and then you put them away, and then you go pull out the clutch and you show off the clutch. Well, if you don't wash your hands between, then all that artificial incubation and that period of killing off the virus so that the babies don't get it, well, now you've skipped all of that and taken the virus straight from the parents to your hands and then straight to the babies. So I would definitely advise it. Personally, I will not be doing that anymore. It's just not worth the risk, because even if it's unknowingly there, ignorance does not give you a free pass in this situation. It can definitely cause a lot of problems. Let's see, trying to keep up here. I would like to know what the disease occur. What this disease occur from and where, like out of the country, or this came out of nowhere. It has been found in several countries, in several species of python and other species as well. Um, and it's not located in one place in particular. I know for sure it's in the United States. I know they have had studies in Australia and Germany and the UK. And it's, I mean, at this point, it's safe to say it's, I'm not going to say it's everywhere, but it clearly could very well be everywhere. And it's something that we should all be concerned about and not, again, not be afraid, not freak out. And this is no, horror, or it's not, I can't think of the word. It's not the end of the world. We shouldn't all be panicking, but we should be taking the time to educate the new keepers in the community and make sure that they're not slipping through the cracks and completely unaware of this. And the ones that do know about it and have experience should feel confident and free to share their experience. Not something that we should be hiding. Curious if you have had any discussion about this with your veterinarian. I am curious to see what would be the best outcome. So my vet is the one that recommended Nido to me. When I decided a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, to expand my collection, I had done about 3 months of research, and that was Googling scientific information. That was YouTube videos from big breeders, videos on how to start your collection, videos on how to obviously build racks and all that stuff. And somehow, in those months and months of studying, Nidovirus and viruses in general never came up. And when I started keeping ball pythons 12 years ago, Nidovirus didn't exist. It was not Serpentovirus, this ball python Nidovirus did not exist 12 years ago. So the fact that I was blindsided by this, because I'm coming back into it post Nido. Nido was discovered about 5 years ago in ball pythons. And the fact that I come back, do all this research and not find anything on it, not that I was looking for it, but it should have been readily available. We shouldn't let people come into this community. People come in, they buy one snake, they fall in love, and then a year later they've got 10 snakes. It's like, that's commonplace. Why should we let those people come in? Not that we should keep them out, but why should we let them in and not prepare them for what could happen and educate them? Let's see. Wait. What's up, BH? What's up, Jays? Straight fire. Welcome. What's this button do? Oh, you can invite somebody to go live with. That's really cool. So that's how. So atypical. That must be how y'all do the shared streaming. I didn't realize that there's a button to invite other people to my stream. That's pretty cool. Elijah, Nidovirus itself is a bit of a confusing term. Nidoviruses are a whole family of viruses. Yep. So the common term, since it was originally found in like 2015-ish, was Nidovirus. And since then, it's been reclassified as a subset of Nidoviruses. And technically, in that subset is the Rona, which I'm not going to go into detail on because I'm on YouTube and YouTube doesn't like people talking about that for some reason. But the Rona is one of those, and ball python Nidovirus, or ball python Serpentovirus, technically, is another. They're similar, not at all. They're not at all interchangeable or anything like that. There's no risk to humans. This virus is tailored specifically to pythons and their tissues, and being riding on that host. It cannot hitch a ride on us, fortunately, except our hands. They can ride on our hands and we can spread them all over the place. Da, 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 da. Agreed. How do you swab the inside of the snake's mouth? So, um, if you look up Nidovirus test kits on YouTube, there's a ton of videos. I say a ton. There's probably 5, 6, plenty of people ordering the Fish Head Lab test kit, and they go through it. It's got pamphlets and all that stuff. It comes with gloves. It's a great kit, and they're very thorough with their testing. RAL is a much cheaper option. I think that both facilities have their benefits. Clearly, one is more affordable, but the other one is, as far as I could tell, they intend to be more thorough and ideally find more accurate results to some extent. Not that RAL is bad or bad at finding good results. So either's fine, but this is the RAL test tube that you can order off their website. I'll show it over here. And all it is a capsule. You pull off the cap, and it has the swab attached to it. So what you do is you take something like this, little cheap popsicle stick, wash your hands, take the animal, use the popsicle stick or a piece of plastic or whatever to hold the mouth open. You typically, if you hold by the bottom jaw, like use this to kind of pry the mouth open, apply pressure to the bottom jaw, and then when you come in to swab, you take the swab and you apply pressure to the top jaw. You're not stabbing them with it, but you go basically where our palate would be, and you rub around there. And the cloaca is the opening in the top in their palate that they breathe through, and that's where a lot of the saliva and mucus can build up. That happens from like an RI or something like that. But that's where the virus is typically detected, and you want to be very careful when you're doing that. You don't want to go too far down their throat or anything like that. You're going to get a bunch of other bodily fluid that you don't really need. You focus predominantly on the cloaca. And two things: be very careful that is only touching the inside of that snake's mouth. You don't want it to touch the outside of the snake. You don't want it to touch your hands. If you just wash your hands with antibacterial soap and you didn't fully dry them, or even if you did fully dry them, and then you touch that swab, let's say that wet swab gets in the mouth and then it brushes against your hand. If you pick up antibacterial soap on the end of that swab and then it sits in a test tube for a day, that's plenty of time for that antibacterial soap to affect your sample. So be very careful what that swab touches. Be very careful getting it gently back into the tube, seal it tight, send it off. The exotics, Mary, see if I missed anything. A few years ago, I said all breeders should test for Nido, and people gave me such a hard time. It was crazy. Yeah. So up until recently, or up until I guess me getting out there and talking about it, I'm not saying I'm anybody special, but I have seen plenty of people get ripped for talking about this. I've heard horror stories of people getting torn apart for being open about this, which is sad. And there's some underlying reasons for that. At the end of the day, there's no reason for us to be. I'm not ashamed of the situation I'm in. I feel like I was blindsided by it. I should have been informed. And there are steps that we could take to avoid it. But at the end of the day, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Somebody getting this virus, you can't blame them for it. But it's so easy to see, like, oh, my snakes are dying, and somebody say, oh, well, you're just a crappy keeper, or you don't know what you're doing, or whatever. Rather than us saying, okay, well, let's try to understand what you're going through and see if there's any information we can share from our point of experience. There's no reason for us to bash each other. But I think that the reason that a lot of other breeders have avoided discussing this openly is that it has been so taboo, and especially in forums and on the internet, not in video format, but just in text. It's so easy for somebody to come in almost anonymously and then beat you up, and not have a face to face conversation. And I think that people assumed that if they came out on video and talked about it, that they would get the same treatment. But clearly, I'm not getting that treatment. I've had a few people try to run their mouths to me, but it's just noise to me. I don't mind it. The majority of people have been extremely supportive, which I greatly appreciate. And at the end of the day, I hope that I'm setting some kind of example. Like, I hope other YouTubers, big YouTubers, see me and say, "Oh, well, if he talked about it and he didn't get ripped to shreds, hopefully we could talk about it and not get ripped to shreds." Because there are people out there that have way more reach than I have. And if they talked about this in a good light and shared valid information, it can make a huge difference. So I'm not special. I'm not the only person that's doing the things I'm doing. I'm not the only person that has Nidovirus into their collection and shut their sales down and did all the right things and reached out to their customers and went through the testing and all that stuff. There's so many people out there that have reached out in private and shared their experiences with me, but they're, to some extent, there's a shame that it's taboo, so they can't talk about it. They're doing it they're going through all this by themselves without any support, and it's depressing. It's sad that we shouldn't leave anyone alone in this situation. It's very difficult to go through, and I feel very encouraged by all the people that have tried to help. Lose out big time, guys with hundreds of snakes, as allegedly. Well, there are plenty of stories out there of places selling and whatever. Again, I've avoided discussing any names of people or breeders or any of that stuff, because I think it's noise. If I tell you, if I could, let's say theoretically, I could figure out who sold me my sixth snake that started all this. If I told you who it was, then that creates an assumption that they're the bad guy and they did this to me on purpose. And that also makes the assumption that they're the only one that has it in their collection, that they're the problem. But if I tell you don't go to breeder A and then you run to breeder B or C or D, well, according to Fish Head Labs research and a few other places, there's like a 30% chance that any given collection has it present in their collection. So you don't go to B, or you don't go to A, and then you decide to go to B, C, or D, you got a 1 in 3 shot of potentially buying a sick animal. And that's scary. That's really scary. And, my hatchlings that tested positive, they look perfectly healthy. I'm going to do a video pretty soon of, what does Nido look like? And I'm kind of ironically showing you a perfectly healthy animal, because that's what it looks like. The majority of the time, Nido doesn't show itself. That's how it spreads so easily, and that's how it's going around. It's because it just looks like a snake until it gets sick, and then it gets very sick very quickly, and it spreads and yada yada. It's messy.